Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Here we go. Dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being with us in class today. Jason is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota at GCN. I'm Vincent Finelli. If you'd like to call us, we'll pay for the call, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. Telephone listen line, 605-477-3249, 605-477-3249. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. Welcome, Rick.
Good morning, Vincent. You make me laugh. Yeah. Good morning.
Well, Rick, I wanted to start with an article that I read, but I can't. Because now I'm looking. Well, the article is have we already passed peak oil and world peak coal? I can't read the article because there's a commercial, an advertisement that is covering up 70% of the screen. I can only read one line at a time. Rick, I'm walking around angry at everything I look at is in my way. Everything I see is becoming a problem for me. It didn't used to be. It's not like I'm looking for problems. I would just like to go my merry way and be left alone. But I can't. I'm at Zero Hedge, and I've got this 20% off all Blink XT cameras and systems, whatever they happen to be. I don't know. But I've got that on my screen, and I can't read the article because 15% of the article of the page says Zero Hedge. That's all it says. And then a small amount is for reading the article, and then there's this big advertisement plastered right on top, and there's no X to click. Okay, so what do we do in these cases? Do you have a thought? What do we do when?
Well, they used to when I was a kid. There was a cartoon in the Sunday papers every morning said they do it to you every time. And that's what I'm reminded of. These issues that are, global. And advertising is starting to get to be creepy in everything I do, even my email. It's just everywhere you turn, there's an advertisement.
So here's what I did. I just clicked, in the upper right-hand corner of the ad, where you'd have that spot that says you could click this X and get rid of that ad. Well, there's no X there. So I clicked that spot, and it takes me to Amazon for I could buy this Blink camera thing. However, when Amazon came up, it has an ad in the middle of Amazon, which is taking 25% of the real estate of the screen, that says, Amazon Smile. All this money has been donated to a charity so far. Want to donate to your favorite charity at no cost to you? What? Wait a minute. Want to donate to your favorite charity at no cost to you? See, that's the kind of thing that angers me for several reasons. Number one, I got an ad. If I wanted to look at this Amazon page to buy this Blink camera, which I never would do because they are in my way, blocking what I'm trying to read. So Blink is crossed off my list. I certainly wouldn't buy from them. But now Amazon has got an ad. I can't even look at the Blink page because Amazon has an ad saying that I can donate to my favorite charity at no cost to me. Now, how can I donate at no cost to me? How's that possible? How can you donate and have it not be a cost? I think what they mean is they won't charge me extra for the donation, right? But that's not what it says. It says, want Amazon to donate to your favorite charity at no cost to you. And then you can pick a charity. Or you can say no thanks. Or you can click the X. So now I click that X to get rid of that. Then I have to get rid of the Amazon thing. And now I can't read the article from Zero Hedge that talks about have we reached peak oil? And that's really the question. Dr. Richard Allen Miller, do you think there is such a thing as peak oil, and have we reached it?
I'm not sure what you're asking me.
Well, the question is there, when I was going to school, I learned that, or I was taught, that all these dinosaurs died in a pile, and under pressure and heat, those dinosaurs were squeezed into oil. And then we now pump that oil out of under the ground where the dinosaurs used to live.
Yeah.
And then, and so there are these little puddles of oil under the earth, which is, former dinosaurs, and plants, and things that lived. Is that true or not?
I have no idea. I think that it's black goo mutating into. It's hard to know what any of this means anymore. The commercial part feels to me like the valley of the shadow of death. It's in a supermarket, anywhere you go, and the disinformation is such that even I can't figure it out anymore. What about our cold that's going on right now? The weather. Have any of you, experienced anything like this before? I have lived in serious weather.
You're talking about these violent temperature swings, these massive dumps of snow?
Look at what's happening in Northern California. My girlfriend's parents were flying out, and all the airports got closed because of snow. Well, how does that work?
Well, it seems like it comes on us really fast, and it seems like it's more massive than it ever was. I remember snow when I was growing up in the 50s and 60s. Sure, we had snow. I remember walking in snow. I remember, shoveling the driveway, the path to the driveway from the door. I remember that. But it's not like this. It's not like it's paralyzing, or it wasn't paralyzing like it is now. And people behave differently. For example, when it snowed, they would already have provisions. They wouldn't say, oh, no, it's going to snow. Let's go buy the things that we should have bought before. They didn't do that. They were more prepared. They were more conscientious. Today, and that was one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today, was this lifestyle that we have, this 24/7 lifestyle. For example, I believe that we have sciences. We have the biological sciences, the chemical sciences, the electrical sciences, and the mechanical sciences. But if you look at the human body is biological, chemical, electrical, and mechanical. It's all those things. And then you have this 24/7 lifestyle that we want to have. Well, some people want to have, not me. I don't really care about that. I'm okay with work during the day and sleep at night. I'm okay with that. I think that's the way it should be. But the point I'm trying to make is we live 24/7. We want to be able to go to that 7-Eleven 24 hours a day, or Walmart, or whatever the place is. We want to buy what we want to buy when we want to buy it. And we want to have that we want to satisfy that greed that we have. So because we want 24/7, that means that we need street lights so we can see where we're going 24 hours a day. We need to have buildings that are open 24 hours a day. So now what we've done is we've illuminated the earth. If it's not the sun illuminating the earth, we're doing it. So there's light 24 hours a day. Now we're confusing ourselves because our biology isn't made to run 24 hours a day, is it? Are we supposed to sleep? Are we supposed to have darkness and sleep? Aren't the plants supposed to have a rest time? I know grass is. Grass is supposed to rest. And if it doesn't rest, it doesn't do very well. It doesn't thrive. So aren't we diminishing our ability to grow food because we've got lights on all the time on planet Earth? Is that correct or incorrect, Rick?
Well, that's biorhythms in the body. We have different cycles that make our body function properly. When we go to the bathroom, when we go to sleep, when we wake up. It used to be based on light. That was what one of the functions of the pineal gland was to regulate the body for seasonal changes. Once we started using artificial light, the body got confused and the pineal gland atrophied. It's no longer functioning. And one of its functions was to generate nerve tissue in the neural cavity rather than glial cells. This immediately sets up a life limitation in terms of nerve tissue. For example, biorhythms.
Okay. So how are we going to be at our optimal best? How are we going to be
each of us
inventive?
Is different. Yeah, we function differently. We you get to know your regulation. Being regular is probably where you will find most optimum health. Staying up at night, we're now realizing that sleep deprivation is not healthy. It has a function, but it's not healthy. I'm realizing now that the more regular that I am, the happier I am. It has to do with things functioning correctly in your body. And there are several different kinds of circuits. These are, with emotional circuits. And sometimes they run in different cycles so that they go in and out of sync with each other. And that's why noticing these kinds of things, keeping a diary or a journal, is often a way to find optimum health.
So when we look at people and we look at microwave ovens and we look at, wow, people are mostly water. And I believe children have even more water as a percentage than the aged. If that's the case, and microwaves seem to work best if you want to heat something in your microwave oven, the more water content it has, the better it heats up. Let's talk about that in a minute. And how does that relate to children? When we're talking about microwave frequencies, back to light for just a minute. So, Rick, and I've noticed that there are fewer bugs in cities than there are in the countryside, kind of like where I live. Not that there are a lot of bugs anymore. I think we've killed a lot of them off as well. But I think that there's a relationship between the amount of light and the amount of bugs. I think that there's a possibility that bugs are confused, except the ones like roaches, they live in the dark. But, I'm talking about bugs that fly around. I think they're confused. I think our plants are confused. I think people are confused because of the light. Now, that's just one part of the equation, but is that possible?
Yeah.
I lost my mind.
No. CB, there's the sun right now is issuing a different kind of light, and it's having an effect on insects on the ground that will proliferate up into higher life forms shortly. Bees, for example, with the towers, the 5G towers and other kinds of bandwidths that are being used, bumblebees use that as a way of travel. And when you change the EM spectrum, it's going to confuse the bee. In fact, that's what the studies are now showing. The thing, it's not about GMOs and killing off bees. They're getting confused because of the radio frequencies, the bandwidths that they would normally use to sight themselves and where they are and where they're going.
navigation.
I have a friend in Seattle now that is using shungite. He's actually coating his beehives with shungite, and the honey is different. Now, I don't know where this is all going to go, but it's very interesting.
Well, okay, what about making a Faraday cage for the bees? Give them a way in and a way out.
Yeah, that's essentially what he's doing, trying to give some partial shielding to the bee from these unnatural bandwidths that are reaching the surface of the earth. That's what our atmosphere was primarily about in the first place, was to screen that, give us some kind of protection. And now that we are bringing those bandwidths right down to the surface to use them for convenience and things like cell phones, it's going to have a havoc on everything.
Okay, so cell phones, as I look at cell phones, I think of a device that just says, I'm greedy. I want it now. I'm sorry to say that, but it seems that that's what it is, because people who have cell phones used to come to my house, and they would sit at the kitchen table, and they would take out their cell phone. They had it with them everywhere they were. Everywhere they went, they had their cell phone. They want it now. And what has happened is the cell phone, to me, has replaced friendships. Now, they want to text people whom they think they like, but their cell phone seems to have become their best friend. And it's an electronic device. It's not a person. I can't imagine what a childhood would be like today. I used to love to, right after school, and I'd go over to my friend Pete's house, my boyfriend Pete's house, and we built go-karts. He had his, I built mine. They were made out of wood, and we had, we engineered our own steering system and our own drive system and our own bearings and wheels, and we used to ride them around on the street, in a lightly populated area. We didn't ride them around the city streets, but we used to love doing that. He would make his better, I'd make mine better, and we would learn and improve, and this is without our parents doing it for us. We did this ourselves. But does that happen today? Do young children have the desire to learn about internal combustion engines, leverage, friction, gears, pulleys, ratios, traction? Are we interested in that anymore? Rick, I don't think people have hobbies anymore.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah, I have hobbies.
Well, do young people have hobbies?
I don't know.
We'll be right back. We'll be right back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is with us. RichardAllenMiller.com. Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller.com. Rick, you and I got an email that I think some of the information is accurate about. Let me tell you what I think is accurate. The email to me came as a project inquiry form on USA Prepares. It came from a person whose name is Joe Blow. I believe that's correct. He spells it J-O space B-L-O. I think that must really be his name. His general location in the United States is Locust, and I believe that's correct. I believe he is a locust. His email address is jb@gmail.com. I believe that's correct, too. The project category that he mentioned is security. I believe that's correct. Then he says, email subject, the paranoid professor. Now, that's where I don't think it's correct. I don't think the professor is paranoid. The paranoid professor, comma, Richard Allen Miller made the statement, I'm smarter than anyone I know on USA Prepare Show, February 14th, 2019, at 44 minutes, 50 seconds. And then the YouTube link. Well, Richard Allen Miller is really, really smart. And he probably is smarter than most people he knows. And then, so at that part, I think he's incorrect by saying, well, he's correct in saying that that's what happened. But then he said Vincent Finelli is just as guilty. Just as guilty for what? Vincent Finelli is just as guilty for not calling him on this motto. I got to read this again. Vincent Finelli is just as guilty for not calling him on this, as his motto is honesty and integrity. Yeah, that is my motto. Actually, it's above all honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you. That is my motto. And what am I supposed to call Richard Allen Miller out on? Him saying that he's smarter than anyone he knows? Well, he really is smart. So what am I supposed to say? I don't know. This guy, Joe Blow, another detractor. But I got to tell you, I really enjoy the detractor. So please keep it up. It brightens my day when I get a chance to see how many people are stupid. I enjoy it. I haven't seen as many provocateurs trashing us as we used to have, and I kind of miss it. Rick, I really enjoy seeing why our country is going down the drain, because of stupid people like this guy who claims his name is Joe Blow.
Well, in his defense, he is, in a sense, correct, and I shouldn't be saying things like that. Of course, it's out of context, and if you go back and see why I said that, it had to do with military and my working with military as a civilian, and do I want to report to somebody on a technical level that is not as smart as me? And at this age in my life, I don't believe that I need to do that anymore. I do not need to report to somebody in the military that is dumber than me. And that, knowing what I know, if they want to use me, I do it maritime law. I've earned my stripes, if you will. And the government, as it is today, is an embarrassment for me. I'm watching the Democratic Party and the splits in the different kinds of Democrats that are going on. And do you want to be serving somebody like that? No, I won't, and I'll say so up front. Now, that means I shouldn't say what I'm saying. I need to rephrase it, and in a manner that is even taken out of context, is not, because I don't mean to brag. That has nothing where I'm coming from at all. There are many different kinds of intelligences, and I'm one kind. I'm blessed, but I see other people that are way more emotionally aware than I am. Sensitive, awareness of group people. As a nerd, I'm not as familiar with those awarenesses, and I work in a laboratory, and I do what I do, and I make my own breakthroughs. But there are many different kinds of intelligence, and I know the difference. And so I'm in awe of a lot of things, but not working for somebody that is not as smart as me in my field. That's why they hire me to do that, but I'm not going to do things their way because they want me to. And that's that.
I've got a comment about that.
Yeah,
I've got a comment.
I might have at age 40, at age 75, I've done my dues. I don't need to do that anymore, and I'll go do what I want to do.
Yeah, I agree with you. And here's something that I say when we introduce new instructors here at USA Prepares. I say something akin to this. For those of you new to the class, there are over 200 of us here at USA Prepares, experts in various areas. All of us are innovators. We are dentists, medical doctors, broadcasters, CEOs, surgeons, engineers, researchers, physicists, farmers, and inventors. And we're students rising to become instructors. None of us is capable of holding down a job. And what I mean by that is, for anyone who has thought about it, we are individuals who think differently. We think way outside the box. We think of better, faster, smarter ways of doing things. We look at the people who are in positions of alleged authority, our supervisors, and we go, how did that guy get so far on so little, make so much, and stay so long? How did that happen? How did that guy become the supervisor, the manager, the executive, the administrator, the boss? How did that happen? Because it's not very smart. And why would I want to take direction from a guy who knows less about what we're doing than I do? Why? Why would I want to do that? I don't want to do that. And that is who we are here at USA Prepares. So this guy, Joe Blow, obviously is not one of us. And you mentioned government. Rick, Milton Friedman was a renowned economist, very well known. And he said, quote, if you put the federal government in charge of the Sahara Desert, in 5 years, there would be a shortage of sand, end quote.
I know.
Now, I think he's on to something. And, we've said the government corporation can't get anything right. Nothing. And you
there may be some agendas involved here. Secret agendas. That's the problem. It used to be, when I saw things, both the Democrats and the Republicans wanted the same thing for America. They just wanted to do it differently.
Yeah,
but that's not true anymore.
That's right.
And that's not true anymore, and it's scary.
I was looking on the internet, and I'm trying to think, why does Pelosi and Chuckles Schumer, why are they against the wall? What is this all about? Well, if you do some research, you might find out that their campaigns, their political campaigns, have received money in contributions from major drug operations south of the border. Check it out. You'll probably find the same thing that I found out. So a wall would be a real problem for the drug trade, that contributions have been made from for Chuckles Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and others. How about that? How about Ollie North?
Yeah, the Clinton Foundation has already been shown to be involved with the drug cartels. That one came out yesterday. And I'm watching the news. It's unbelievable. I had no idea. I'm a nerd. I'm not that smart in political areas. I mostly hang out in nerd areas, and it just amazes me what I'm seeing revealed every day today. Mm-hmm. It's kind of scary for someone like me to realize that these kinds of people have been put into a position of power that dictates my rights.
All right, well, here's a quote from Joseph Stalin. Ideas are more powerful than guns. We would not let our enemies have guns. Why should we let them have ideas? Now, if you think about that, let me say it again. Ideas are more powerful than guns. We would not let our enemies have guns. Why should we let them have ideas? Let's think about that. What's happening with our educational system? Do you think they're fostering ideas? Do you think they're fostering innovation? Do you think they're teaching our young people how to be creative? Do you think they're fostering innovation in the public training camp? Or are you seeing that the young people are being dependent on devices that can add, subtract, multiply, divide, and find distances for them because, heck, they don't need to learn how to estimate? One of the things that I learned when I was in elementary school was how to estimate. That's a really important thing to learn how to do. Not only can you figure out how far it is between here and there, or how about if you look at something and you say, well, I think I'll pick that up and move it over there. Well, estimation is important in that, because how far is it over there, and how much do you think that thing weighs that you're looking at? You can estimate the weight, and you go, you know what, I don't think I can move it. I think it weighs 500 pounds. But we've lost that ability because we're not being trained in how to do it. We'll be right back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. Rick, one of the things I despise is people who spy on people. You know, I'm thinking about the king of spies, the undisputed king of spies, the tool of the CIA and NSA, Mark Zuckerberg and his organization, as well as Google. Well, American Airlines and Delta Airlines have deployed screens in the seat backs. Now, I've read this article, and I actually know of someone who just flew in the last couple of weeks, and a call came in that said they've got screens on the seat backs of airplanes, and they have cameras in them. Now, think about this. So here's the article. It says, Daily Mail, Eye in the Sky. American Airlines, United, and Delta have tiny cameras installed on some of their seatback screens, but they insist they'll be used for video conferencing and are not yet active. American Airlines, United Airlines, and Delta seatback entertainment screens have cameras embedded in them. The cameras are a standard feature on many in-flight entertainment systems used by multiple airlines. Manufacturers of these systems have included cameras for possible future uses, such as seat-to-seat video conferencing. Let me say that a different way. Manufacturers of those systems have included cameras for possible future uses, such as seat-to-seat video conferencing. Rick, we are now flying in airplanes with cameras that look at our crotches. Yeah.
Well, I don't know what to say about that. This is over the edge.
Why? It is over the edge.
Yeah, why?
It's over the edge. It's outrageous. And so what are people going to do? Well, don't fly. Don't fly. Really. I know an employee of a company, and they said, hey, we've got a meeting coming up, and you're going to have to fly to, from one coast to the center part of the country. They said, okay, you're going to be flying, and you've got this meeting to go to. And this employee said, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not going. I don't see a need to go. I'm not going. So this young person said, there's all kinds of risks flying. Of course, the plane can fall out of the air. That's one. But other risks are the scanners, the X-radiation scanners, the particulates, the radioactive air, the chemicals in the sky that are being sprayed all over by the planes in front of the passenger planes. Why would anybody want to fly unless you absolutely have to? Have I lost my mind, Rick?
Well, yeah and no. The whole concept of privacy is now the major issue in China. And China is an example of what's going on today, where they will have a picture of you on an LED screen in public breaking the law, let's say jaywalking. And they will post that for public scrutiny as a way of deterring you from breaking the law. How do you feel about that? How would you feel if all of a sudden, I'm going to the post office And instead of going over to the light, I cut across the street. Well, I've done that for 40 years. 36 years at this post office. And the town is getting larger, so there's probably, at some point, not yet, a need to watch the light. But this is great.
Well, my reaction is it depends. You know, if there's nobody there. Well,
that's right.
That's one thing. If it's congested and walking out, you know, in the middle of the block, someone's going to slam on the brakes and there's going to be a chain reaction and there's going to be a multiple vehicle calamity. Well, that doesn't, you know, that's not the right thing to do. We're talking about responsibility, individual responsibility. That's what we're talking about. Rick, when we come back, let's talk a little bit about science. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is with us, richardallenmiller.com. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is with us. If you'd like to go to his website, richardallenmiller.com, Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller.com. Rick, adults are about 60% water. Children are about 65% water. Infants are about 75 to 78% water. Let's talk about microwave radiation. Let's talk about how dangerous it is. So, and I can prove it really simply. Class, here's how dangerous microwave radiation is. And you can do this in your own home. You can put a cup of water in a microwave oven, and you can set it for, let's say, a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes, and it will boil. It'll boil. The same frequencies that are in your microwave oven are the same frequencies that are all around you in the air, like in your Wi-Fi router, your wireless router, in the cell phone towers, in your cell phones. It's the same frequency or frequencies, but the cell phones are at a lower power level. So instead of cooking your food in your microwave oven on high power for a shorter time, you are cooking yourselves on low power for a longer time. Rick, is the electromagnetic radiation that we receive from microwave devices cumulative?
Well, no, they're not, and yes, they are. That's too broad of a question because there is what we call dosimetry. Dosimetry is the amount of absorbed radiation, and it has what's called an LD50 ratio, lethal dose 50. When you get so much exposure, 50% die. And Dr. Beale has done every single organ in your body has different bandwidths that it responds to. In the brain, it's in the microwave region. The temporal lobes begin to heat up, and just like the water, and ring, and that's how they use the voice-to-skull technology. Is it toxic? Everything has, like I said, a lethal dose 50 ratio, and the dosimetry is the exposure ratio, the amount of exposure, dosimetry. And so we need to monitor these things. One of the things that we have to protect ourselves is our atmosphere. And our atmosphere usually screens out most of the sun's high band radiation, what we call ionizing radiation. The ionizing radiation is the part that becomes seriously dangerous, and that we call it radioactivity. Now, it's all different. When I was in college, I learned about certain kinds of frequency bands that when I went into biophysics, started to use these frequency bands as tools. But like all tools, there are double edges to everything. That's what man does. He takes whatever there is, a fullerene, whatever, that has an advantage also has a sharp edge. And so the first thing that happens in technology today is the first applications are weaponization of it. And when you realize that radio waves were used in the Montauk experiments, where there were disruptions in the cellular level of one organ being penetrated by another, now you've got a serious problem. I'm not making any sense. I guess what I'm trying to say is every single organ. Okay, the way I'll do it, when I built an aortic catheter, and the aortic catheter was supposed to measure what is called cardiac output. And it's a catheter that used microwave band frequencies at 10 megahertz, not gigahertz now that we're, high end, but megahertz. It turns out that it would reflect off blood. And you could use a 10 megahertz crystal to measure blood velocity. It would hit the blood and reflect back. And you could use it as a Doppler transducer. Then in the aortic wall, which is a cellular wall, it was at 28 megahertz that was reflected. And so I put 28 megahertz crystals around a catheter that would do a reflection off the wall to give me aortic cross-section. Now, the blood is different. It's at 10 megahertz, and the cell wall is at 28 megahertz. What happens at 30 megahertz or 40 megahertz? These are the areas where the edge between something in medicine and something in weaponry, like a horn used with the Branch Davidians to cause the amalgam in your teeth to heat up for crowd dispersal, is the distinction between it being a tool and a weapon. And today, the distinction is becoming thinner and thinner between one to the other, and why we no longer want to use nuclear radiation as a source of power. I don't know. I don't have the answers that people may want. I'm limited. I'm an old man, and I know what I know. The atmosphere today, when you bring these bandwidths down to the level of Earth, they're going to have an effect on everything, including insects. And a farmer is possibly one of the first to notice these differences when he notices that the amount of flies on the cow pies are less, and somehow the ant population is decreased. And this will proliferate back up into higher life forms as a resonant cavity oscillation. And that is exactly what is happening today in our Earth. And we're using frequencies and bandwidths that are toxic.
Let me just tell you a side comment. We had a drought during the summer, and I mentioned that this is really going to be bad because farmers are going to have less hay. And you mentioned farmers notice things. And I do. And I talk about them. That's what we do on USA Prepares. Well, I mentioned that hay is going to be scarce. Farmers are going to be forced to sell their herds. Hay is going to be very expensive for those farmers who want to buy it. Last year, hay was $30 to $35 per roll, 1,000-pound roll. Now it's about 100, if you can get it.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not. I'm not kidding you. Here's what's happening, Rick. And this is very, very serious. And I mentioned that farmers are going to begin selling their cows, and they're going to be selling their farms. That's what's happening. Farmers right now, we know this is the case. Farmers right now in our area of Missouri cannot afford to feed their cows. They're selling their herds. They're selling their herds. Now, when you sell your herd of cows, you're not going to be able to make more cows. You'll have to buy a new herd or buy a few cows. We started out with 33 cows, and we built our herd from there. Some have died. Most have reproduced. We've had lots and lots of cows, and that's how we pay our way through the society. We're in the food business. Well, farmers can no longer afford to feed their cows because the cost has gone up 3x. I'm not exaggerating. It's absolutely true. If they can get the hay. Then there's the hauling of the hay. So what's happened is farmers now have figured out that new equipment with the loans that come with it and the interest is unaffordable. The taxes on the property, unaffordable. The fuel, unaffordable. The maintenance, unaffordable. The implements and their maintenance, unaffordable. It's getting worse and worse. So literally, farmers are going out of business. And that's going to affect everybody. There's a sign that we're talking about electromagnetic radiation. I'm going to read this sign. I found this on the internet. Public health warning. All wireless devices emit microwave radiation, a known biological hazard. And it shows a picture of a cell phone tower, a smart meter, a Wi-Fi router, a cordless phone, and a communication device for other electronics, wireless devices. It says, every time you use a wireless device, you are exposed to microwave radiation. The World Health Organization labels this radiation as a Class 2B possible cancer-causing agent, in the same category as lead, DDT, chloroform. Cell phones, cordless phones, tablets, laptops, smart meters. The more you're around these devices, the more radiation you get. Microwave radiation is harmful to you. Scientists link this radiation to diseases, both long-term and short-term. Cancer, infertility, DNA damage, damage to fetuses, sleep problems, memory and behavior problems, heart problems, and many others. Many people have become electro-hypersensitive. They call it EHS, and cannot tolerate even low exposures, seriously impacting their health, job, housing, and social lives. Government regulations do not protect you. Government regulations, FCC guidelines were written decades ago and ignore the current science linking microwave to human diseases. We'll be right back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. Rick, I've got Mark on hold, calling in from Illinois. Do you have any comments about that public health warning about every time you use a wireless device, you're exposed to microwave radiation that's harmful to you, and the government is not going to protect us? Any comments before we continue?
I don't know where to go with it. You know, I mean, of course I have comments on it. It's terrible.
Okay.
I don't know why. I personally like the convenience of having an emergency phone. I love that. But I carry a track phone. I will not carry a smartphone. Every time I tried to use my smartphone when I traveled, for whatever reason, I went to a region where I didn't have any coverage. There was no need for me to have a smartphone because it didn't work wherever I went. Mm-hmm. So I stopped using a smartphone, and I'm glad I did. Well,
you know, I've gone John Galt, and as I look at people who use these cell phones, they're driving, texting, they're walking in stores, looking down at their cell phones. They are in waiting rooms looking down at their cell phone. I'm the only guy that is not looking down on a cell phone in a waiting room and in stores. And
it does
most
take
places,
you away from the moment.
Yeah,
and the moment is really, sacred.
I don't mind that they're killing themselves slowly. I really don't mind that because they're so stupid they don't understand. Now, I don't mind that. They're going to help the gene pool by eliminating a lot of the stupidity on the planet. But what I do mind is the fact that they're killing everything around them. Okay, by their greed, by their stupidity, by
smoke. Yeah,
secondary smoke. That's right. They're killing the plants, the animals, and some people think that having a driverless car is a really good thing. Well, you need a lot of technology to make that work, and a lot of it is in the microwave bandwidth. That's a real problem for me. I don't want to be next to a vehicle on the highway that's transmitting microwave frequencies that is going from tower to tower to tower to tower every couple of 100 feet because these people want to watch movies in the back seat while some automated vehicle is taking them where they want to go. That's a problem for me because of their irresponsibility, their carelessness, their recklessness, their stupidity is killing the planet. That's where I have a problem. You know, I think people should be able to do whatever they want to do as long as they don't harm other people or other things. But that's not what's happening. Mark in Illinois, welcome. You're on with Dr. Richard Allen Miller.
Hey, good morning. You know, I was studying about Egypt as many years as I've been studying about it. I see all this judgment that came upon Egypt with the weather, and it even happened before Moses, and Aaron. But it was like they were having all kinds of plagues and droughts and pestilence, all this stuff that people might call natural phenomena, but it was really from God. And as the Exodus was starting to gain momentum with Moses, all these plagues and pestilence and all these things, whirlwinds, even back then, tornadoes, all these things that were happening in Egypt, and they were escalating they were accelerating every year. They were going more and more and more. And so I see the same thing happening today in modern day Israel, in Manasseh, America, and happening all over the world. But it's God has to bring people out of this bondage, and the bondage that we're in is worse than Egypt because most people don't know that they're in slavery. The Hebrews knew that they were in slavery back during the time of Egypt, but people today don't realize that. And but it's this whole system of Babylon the Great, this economic, military, religious, and and the political system, and it's going down, all of it. I just want to know what you thought about that.
Rick, do you have a comment?
Well, yes, and no. I'm going to step back on this one. I don't know.
All right, Mark, I've got a comment. I've tried to let the class know that we might have an expo if we could get enough people together who would say they'd leave their cell phones at home.
I don't have
9
a cell
people.
phone.
9 people. 9 people have responded that they would do that. 9. We'll be right back. Yep. So I just got off the phone with MFA, which is the Missouri Farm Association. I've been having a problem with a product that I bought. It's substandard, and I can't get anybody to respond. I called the CEO. Haven't heard from him. I called people at heads of department. They're not there. This is a company that's nobody's there. Okay, can't talk to anybody. Can't complain. It's just, what do you do? What do you do when a company sells you something and it's substandard? They don't tell you it's substandard. It causes a major problem for you, and there's nobody to talk to. What do you do? So I posted on the website, USA Prepares, page number 1, what happened. So if you want to see my thoughts about MFA Incorporated, you might want to read that article. But during the break, the bottom of the hour break, I was so frosted that I decided that I would call and find out where I can get a copy of the bylaws of this cooperative, not-for-profit cooperative. Because I want to run for the board of directors, and I want to start firing people. Like, where do I start? Well, the top management, the entire top management, I want to fire them. And so I'm going to run for the board, and I'm going to let it be known that I want to make some changes. I want to make some changes. I want to reduce prices. I want to improve service, and I want people to be responsible for their actions. So who? Like the people who review the products for sale. We have replaced people, it appears to me, who have been knowledgeable in product selection with people who are careless and reckless and who must be trained as accountants because they must have decided that we can buy all this Chinese junk and sell it and not stand behind it. I want to fire them. Rick, I've absolutely have had it with what's happening in America. And it's not just MFA. It's Sears. It's Sears abandoning their core values. Craftsman. You know, I bought some tools at Craftsman, and over the years, some of them have broken. Now, why did I buy Craftsman? Because it was satisfaction guaranteed or your money back. I knew that they would be replaced if I broke one. That's why I spent twice as much money to buy a Craftsman. And then you go to get it replaced, and they go, we don't make that one anymore. So how do you replace it? Well, we don't have that one anymore. So who do you talk to? This moron who is the cashier? Is that who you talk to? How far are you going to get with that? It's all over, Rick. We are going down through our own stupidity, through our individual greed, and the individual greed of corporations, and corporations posing as government. So the FCC is not protecting us from microwave radiation. They're not. For example, there's a post on the internet that says 5G death. So what does 5G do? Well, it causes dizziness, nausea, tinnitus, high blood pressure, palpitations, vibratory effects in the head and neck, intense head pressure, blurred vision, irritability. I think that sounds like me. Hangover-like symptoms, unable to relax, foggy thoughts, cramps, muscle spasms, virus, flu-like feeling, stiff neck, disorientation, skin aging and damage, effects of difficulty concentrating, breathing problems, skin burns, libido loss, impotence, inflamed muscles, mutated body parts, depression, nightmares, disturbed sleep, insomnia, painful inflamed eyes, ear pain, lethargy, profuse sweating. Sounds like everything.
I can say that it would appear that our system, humanity, has been invaded by something. And I don't know what it is yet.
Do you mean that these politician types are aliens?
No. I mean non-human. Something that is quietly terraforming everything. That is not healthy for human. And look at what's going on in Fukushima right now, this moment. And yet nobody's reporting that.
Well, tell us about it. Tell us about it. What's happening at this moment?
What do you mean? I'm doing a broader concern. Fukushima is just the least of it. What you're talking about, products and the concept of greed. I remember a time when there was cheapest and then there was Best Buy. That's gone. There is no trade balance. When I got into farming, I wanted to begin alternative crops for export so that we could have some kind of parity. Today, I don't know where to go with this. I just basically am going to state I feel as if something non-human is terraforming the earth in front of our eyes in a slow 2 or 3 generation overlay. Enough that you don't quite notice it, but it's there in front of you.
Okay, so a few years ago, we had some cell towers going up, and they were called 4G towers, 85 feet or so tall. And they'd start out with a couple antennas on them, like maybe 3, and then 6, and then 9, and then 15. And then they added another layer above that, and then they added another layer below that, because let's use the same tower and let's put, 100 antennas on this thing. Now we're looking at smaller towers that are, let's say, 30 feet tall, light poles, for example, in the highways and byways in the cities. And these are about, maybe 30 feet tall. They put the antennas near the top. So now we're talking about an antenna every couple of 100 feet. We're talking about tens of millions of these antennas being deployed in the very near future. So we're talking about people killing themselves with their greed for faster. I can't read a map, but my phone can tell me where I am. Where am I? I'll just ask my phone. How can I add these two numbers together? How can I figure out how much this costs per ounce? Well, my phone will tell me. Can I get this at a better price? Well, I can just take my smartphone and aim it at the barcode, and I have an app that will tell me, I don't, but then people do, have apps that will tell them where they can get it in the nearby area. So, for example, let's say I want to buy a box of something. Let's call it an oil filter. So if I'm at the auto parts store, if I had a smartphone, I could turn that box over, find the barcode, aim a smartphone at that barcode, and it'll tell me where else I can get it and for how much. What does that tell us? That tells us that the internet databases can tell us who has oil filters and how much they sell them for, and where I can go to get one that's near me. It's unbelievable. People might say, what a great idea. So, class, do you think that app is doing that just, they built that and spent all that money to build that just for you? Or do you think they're actually using that information to determine what you buy? Let's say it's contraceptives. Let's say you're in the store and you aim your smartphone at contraceptives. And they'll tell you that, well, you can get them at these other locations. Or whatever it is. Let's say it's a knife. Or let's say it's a box of ammunition. Because you want a comparative shop, right? You want the best deal. So now they know that you're looking at oil filters, contraceptives, and ammunition. And where you were looking. The average now is about 20 sets of data inputs per person per day being collected on you. 20 sets. Every day. Going into your profile. I find this outrageous. The reason I live in the middle of nowhere, the reason I selected this farm with our family was because I drove around looking for cell phone antennas and towers. I didn't want to be near them. I didn't want to be near power substations. I didn't want to be near anything that would be harmful to our family and our animals and our livelihood. And yet it's coming to a neighborhood near us. Why are we allowing this? Why? What we need to do is out these politicians who are so stupid that they say, hey, are you kidding? Do you imagine the commerce we can have in our little city by having all these new towers? What a great idea. These cell phones can think for us. They can do so many wonderful things, and we won't have to remember anything. How many people know their friends' telephone numbers? How many? Probably not too many. How many of you know the telephone numbers of your children? Probably not too many. Why? Because you don't have to. All you have to do is push a button. But when that phone breaks or it has a low battery level, you melt down. Why? Because you're dependent on that stupid thing. Rick, I don't want to have people come visit my house anymore. I mean, a few people, but close friends. but the kind of things that we used to do. Hey, let's have a preparedness meeting over at the farm. No. Because I can't trust people not to show up with their phone. I don't want to be invaded. I don't want to be recorded. I don't want to be videoed. I don't want to have an audio recording of what I say. I don't want to go to people's houses because they may have smart devices that are listening in. And some people might say, well, if you've got nothing to hide, what's the problem? The problem is it's an invasion of privacy. Rick, would you mind commenting on some, any, or all of what I just said? Do you feel the same way, or am I on an island here? Have I lost my mind?
Well, this is one of the reasons I think we've been invaded.
Yeah. But by what? We'll be right back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. RichardAllenMiller.com. Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller.com. Physicist. Rick, any comments about what I just mentioned?
Well, yeah, I just posted the dangers of the electromagnetic frequency bands that are currently being deployed. And Lockheed's Earth fence, it has a serious concern for me. And everybody should look up the Lockheed Earth fence and see what they're planning next with 5G technology. They're going to put satellites across the entire planet so that we are bathed in it. It's quite concerning.
Yeah,
and I don't
so
think
so what's the answer? Metal roof?
I'm sorry?
What's the answer? A metal roof? Metal screen on our windows?
No, you're not going to be able to screen microwave band. That's the problem. There's new concepts I posted from suspicious observers using a Tesla coil that goes across the Van Allen belt, but even that's now changing. So I have a serious concern on what's happening on Earth right now.
Rick, let me give you an example of something that I learned years ago. I was at a gun show, and there was a guy set up, and normally at gun shows, there are people who are selling guns, ammunition, reloading equipment, holsters, usually. It's decayed lately into, perfumes and candles and other things that are not related to guns, but it's devolved. Well, about 7 years ago or so, I was at this gun show, and there was this guy, and he had a table, but he wasn't selling any guns or anything gun-related. He was running for office. So I went over to this guy, and I said, tell me, what are your thoughts? He said, well, I've got a great idea. No one's done this before. And what he thought, he should help farmers. And he wants to help farmers by having the government corporation lease the median in the roads. Let's say there's a 2-lane road, a highway, like the interstate. Well, have the government corporation, because he was running for a state office. He wanted to be a state representative, or he wanted that title. But he wanted to rent that grass to farmers. And this brilliant idea was that the farmers could cut the grass, pay the state for the privilege of cutting that grass, and then they could roll that grass into bales and feed it to cows. I looked at him and I said, have you lost your mind? That is the filter. That is like the oil filter that traps the toxins from all of the exhaust that comes out of these tractor trailers and cars, and the drippings from the crankcases, and the toxic chemicals that drip out of the containers that are hauled up and down the highway. And you want to bale that up and feed that to cows, which are our food supply? Have you lost your mind? I told him I was a farmer, and I couldn't believe it. Well, guess what happened? That guy is now in the government corporation of Missouri. I can't believe how stupid people are. And these are the guys that are running the show. And there are stupid people that probably in meetings have nodded their heads. What a great idea. Yeah, we can save money. That way we won't have to pay those people who go up and down the highways and mow the grass. What a great idea. Because they haven't figured it out. That it's probably, maybe, except for the grass outside of Chernobyl or other nuclear reactors, it's probably the most toxic grass on the planet. Rick, any quick comments?
No, I'm good. You're correct. You are correct, by the way.
Well, the good thing is that, class, we speak what we believe is the truth. We do not lie, obfuscate, confuse, or misrepresent here at USA Prepares. If you like what we have to say, please share these broadcasts and how to get to us with friends and family before it's too late, before we're totally silenced. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you. Thank you, Dr. Richard Allen Miller.